My name's Anna. I'm 24 years old, and when I was 6 years old, I was trafficked. I was born in Mexico. It was my mom, my dad, my sister, and I, and life was pretty difficult in Mexico. It was really hard to get by. We hardly ever had any food on the table, and I think out of a deep desire to give us a better life, my mom and dad decided that it would be a good idea to make the journey to America, but unfortunately, they weren't able to sign up for a visa or get citizenship, and so they took an unfortunate route to get here. They were going to enter the country illegally, and in order to do that, they found a group of people that would pay to bring us here. My dad came first, then it was my mom and my sister, and then I was smuggled in by strangers. I'll never forget waking up one morning, and I wasn't at my house, I was at a friend's house in Mexico. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night really confused because I didn't understand why I was there or how I ended up there. And then that morning, my grandma and my grandpa, they stopped by my friend's house and they brought me a change of clothes, and Grandma and Grandpa brought me candy, and I was just an innocent 6-year-old that was just so happy to see her grandparents and still completely clueless as to what was about to happen. And that was the last time that I saw my grandparents. Maybe like 2 hours after that, a car, an SUV, just rolled up to the house, and I was asked to get in the car, and it was an American woman that I had never met before. I remember going through, I guess, security, and no questions were asked. I guess they just assumed that I was one of her daughters, and there I am, a 6-year-old, in complete shock. I probably didn't say one word. All I was thinking the entire time is, where are my parents and who are these people? And later that night, I remember getting to a house. We were in this beautiful neighborhood, a giant house with beautiful windows. I mean, it was a mansion. It wasn't just a normal house. It was a huge house. And there was a staircase, like a double staircase, and we headed all the way toward this long hallway that just felt endless. I saw numbers on the doors, and I could hear things happening behind the doors. And as we were walking in, I mean, there were other people walking up and down the stairs as well. Women, children, men coming in and out of those rooms. And then at the very end of the hallway was, I'm assuming what was the master bedroom, and she laid down a hand towel and put it in the corner of the room, although there was this giant bed right there, and she just said, hey, stay there, sleep there. And then I remember her and her daughter just getting in the bed and just telling me to not say a word. Ultimately, the plan originally was to just hand me over. The moment we got into America, they were supposed to hand me over to my parents. Instead, they called my parents and asked for more money, and ultimately said, if you ever want to see your daughter again, this is the amount that we're asking for. Otherwise, don't even bother. The search is over and she's dead. My parents were really kind of stuck, like there was nothing for them to do. Literally their only option was to pray and ask the God of the universe to make a way where there was no way. And then the second day that I remember, just again in the middle of the night, the woman that had put me in the car was arguing with a male. I'm assuming it was maybe her boyfriend or her husband. I'm not sure what the relationship was there. I just remember them arguing regarding whether or not they were going to keep me, and whether or not they were going to try to get more money out of my parents, if they were going to keep that up or just hand me over or just keep me and, I don't know, traffic me and just make me a part of whatever they were running there. And then that particular night, it was as if the man that was there had some sort of change of heart. I mean, I think it was maybe fear of the Lord. I don't know what else it could have been. And he just looked at the woman and said, no, we're not going to keep her. We're giving her back. I think that it's undeniable that it was the Lord, because his heart completely shifted in that moment, and he forcefully picked me up from the corner of the room, and he just carried me to the car, down that long hallway, and as I was going down that long hallway, there were faces of kids and women that I can't get out of my head, faces that are engraved into my mind. And I just always wonder, where are they today? And why me? And we get in the car and we drive in the middle of the night in this beautiful neighborhood. This man is just driving me in his car to another location, and so we drove, I don't know, maybe for like 30 to 40 minutes. It felt like forever for me because I didn't know what was next. And we get to this other house, and it was an older Hispanic woman, different type of neighborhood, but still a very nice, normal neighborhood. And she opens the door and just kind of looks around to make sure nobody's watching, and she brings me in, and although she was very kind, I was still very afraid because I didn't know her. I didn't know what their intentions were. And the man just immediately leaves, and she sits me down, and she puts a plate of food in front of me, beans and rice, that's all I remember. And I couldn't eat, although I was starving, and at this point, I don't know how long it had been that I hadn't eaten, over maybe like a week, because the other people hadn't even tried to feed me at that point. She just tried to talk to me and get one word out of me, and I didn't. I couldn't even speak. I was terrified. And I just remember as a 6-year-old, that was the first time I remember laying down across the foot of the bed, and I didn't have a pillow or a blanket or anything, hadn't showered in days, hadn't eaten. And that was the first time that just literally a single tear, was streaming down my face, and I wasn't even making a single sound because I was so afraid that if she heard me crying, that something would happen, that I would get in trouble, or the man and the woman would come back to get me. The next morning, there's a knock at the door, and this beautiful couple shows up at the door. Blonde, gorgeous, just out of a magazine. They were dressed so nice. They were driving a very nice car, and you could just tell they had money. And I remember them just looking me in the eye and trying to reassure me, like, hey, it's gonna be okay. We're taking you to your parents. And I wanted to believe them, but I didn't. I was genuinely convinced that I was never gonna see them again. And then we get in their car, and they strap me in the back, and another long drive that felt like forever. I remember the woman, the male was driving, and the woman was looking back at me, and she just smiled at me, and then she reached over for his hand, and they held hands for a minute. And that was the first time that I felt like an ounce of hope, and I was like, maybe they're good people. That was the first time I had seen love in an entire week and a half that I was gone. And then we ended up in this random abandoned area somewhere in San Diego, California. There was just an abandoned bridge, and it was underneath the bridge, and we're still in the car, and the couple looks at me and they're like, do you see that area over there? We're gonna walk over there, and you're gonna stand there, and whatever you do, you can't move, you can't run, you can't scream, do not make a single sound. And she pointed towards bushes and trees and just different areas, and I could see that there were people there, but I couldn't really see who or what. And she said, there are people there that are armed with guns. If you do anything, if you scream or bring any sort of attention to yourself, you're gonna get shot. And she said, your mom is going to meet you there. Don't run to her. When you see her, do not run, because they could hurt her and hurt you. And then the next thing that I remember is walking over to that particular spot that she told me to stand in. And from the car, she just kept going like this, don't move. Whatever you do, don't move. And I'm just standing there shaking. And then I see a car pull up, and it was my mom. And she gets out of the car so slow. It felt like forever. And she starts inching towards me. And then And she finally embraces me. And you would have thought that I would have fallen apart and just cried in that moment, but I was so stiff and I was so just like gone. I wasn't a normal 6-year-old anymore. I wasn't an innocent 6-year-old anymore. And then we got in the car and we drove off, and my mom's like trying to talk to me and just trying to get any sort of information out of me, and she just couldn't. I just wasn't talking. I was still just traumatized and probably in shock. And then I remember us getting to the house that we were at, and her, taking me to the shower and having my first shower. And there's a particular scent, like a certain shampoo that I can't even use to this day, because every time I take a shower with that particular scent, it just brings back all of those memories, and I start to remember how scary and painful that was. I just remember as a child growing up so afraid of strangers. I was so shy, I was so quiet, thinking that at any moment in the middle of the night, someone was gonna come and take me, whether it was those people or a different group of people. And this time, that I wouldn't be rescued, or that I wouldn't ever see my family again. I give God glory. I'm so thankful, because I think that, again, the only thing that really changed things in that moment was prayer. There's power in prayer, and I think God heard my parents' prayers in the midst of their distress and their brokenness and lack of strength in that time. God really was their strength and gave them the strength to pray and just beg God that I would be returned to them. But I know that I was rescued for a reason and for a purpose, so that I could be a voice for those kids that I saw that day that might have never gotten the chance to have this moment. Because they might have never been set free. And so although it's really hard, I'm really thankful that I can sit here today and expose what's truly happening behind closed doors.